All right, I'm the Flat Rate Master. Let's talk about speccing out repairs so your customers get the best value for their money as well as a quality repair. All right, so speccing out repairs, pricing out repairs can always be a little difficult. You know, a lot of people dealing with, especially European cars, don't understand the, intricacies of working on those cars. You know, that hose that will break, that hose that is almost impossible to get off without breaking, that stuff needs to be priced into a repair. You know, when you have to take off a supercharger to get to a vent hose that broke because you're doing a leaking valve cover gasket, that isn't covered by the valve cover labor, let me tell you. You know, it adds several hours to that repair for a, actually not really expensive hose, but trust me, it can be very, very expensive mistake if you don't price in replacing that hose at the same time. That's one of the things that I think a lot of service writers, even technicians, get wrong, is they want to get the sale, so they do the minimalistic repair and, hope everything works out. And sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. And then your service writer is calling back the customer going, oh, this broke and it's going to be $800 more for this repair because it's a $200 hose and we got to take the supercharger off. As a flat rate technician, you're doing that hose for free. You're losing a couple hours. You know, I'm speaking about the V6 Audis where the vent hoses go behind and they suck. If I can find it, I'll put up a picture of flying valve covers because there's a set of hoses that are really difficult to get off. And basically how you do the valve covers is you flip them up, clean everything off, put new valve cover gaskets on, and put them back down, not really putting any stress on that hose. But you got to price it out so the labor, if you don't break those hoses, goes down, the repair goes down, but your customer is prepared for it, because that's one of the things that a lot of service writers and technicians don't take into consideration is, if that hose breaks, it's a several $100 increase in the bill, but we just got to try not to break it, which means you will break it for sure. There's a BMW valve cover that I have really good luck at getting the vent hose off the back of the valve cover and not breaking it. And 9 times out of 10, I can reuse that hose, no problem. It's that one time I do it where I break that hose and I don't have it on the ticket that it gets much more expensive. Now that one you can do without taking the intake off. It's not as fun, but you can do it. My point of that is if you want your customer satisfaction to be high, you need to price it in the worst case scenario, because that way, when you come in cheaper, you're a hero. If it comes in at what you price it out at, that's what you priced it out at. You know, also, when you're doing something that involves a belt drive, if you take off a belt, price a belt in. I don't care what it looks like. There's nothing worse than going back in after repair, cranking up the car, and the belt squeals like hell. Yes, there's tricks to stop that, but my point of that is because you disturbed that belt, it may be a comeback. You have to take the belt off anyway. Just price out a belt. You know, it literally costs the customer a few bucks. They get a brand new belt, and you don't have to worry about a comeback on a squealing belt because you took it off. And I'm a huge believer in that. I mean, you take a belt off, you put a new belt on, because trust me, it will bite you that 10th time. 9 times it'll be fine, but that 10th time, it won't. Customer comes in with a failure-prone brake system like a, 4Runner. Front calipers tend to stick. Pistons don't always go all the way back in. You can either take it all apart, or you can warn the customers that these are failure prone. You might need calipers. Here's what it's going to cost if it needs them. Here's what it is if it doesn't. I actually did that the other day on a Hyundai. Brakes were metal to metal. Brake pad depths did not match. But when I pulled the car apart, yes, I could have done a full brake inspection, but I'm not paid for that. And, well, quite frankly, I wasn't going to charge the customer for that when I could spend a couple extra minutes pricing out calipers. Customer did not need calipers. They pushed in fine. They pushed in evenly, no problems. But the customer was prepared for calipers, but she didn't need them. Win-win for everybody. I protected the shop's bottom line. I covered my butt from, having to go up there, go do the walk of shame and go up there. And a customer needs calipers, man. I'm sorry. They're stuck. Is it always the best policy to do it that way? Maybe not. Maybe you should take the calipers off, push the pistons back in, price it out that way. But then what happens when they don't buy it and, you just wasted a bunch of time that they're probably not going to compensate the shop for or you? Price out calipers. It's worst case scenario, they come off the ticket and everybody's happier. Worst case scenario, they needed calipers anyway. Always price out the worst case scenario because, prepare your customer for that worst case scenario. Occasionally, you may lose some repairs. But chances are, unless that job went smoothly, you'd have had one very pissed off customer. Because let's say, that Audi with the valve covers, they whine about the valve cover job, you go to do it, you're careful trying to take those hoses off and snap. You got to call them back. They're pissed because you didn't prepare them for that. That's why it's so important to, under promise and over deliver. It's simple as that. That customer is prepared for a bigger bill than may be needed, but it's much better to price out in a way that they're prepared for that bigger bill rather than sitting there in a hope and a prayer that nothing goes wrong. Because I can tell you, those hoses break a lot. More and more manufacturers are going to, plastic coolant fittings. I mean, speaking of coolant fittings, radiator hoses, quick connects. If I have to take them off, it's getting put on the ticket as needing it. Why? Because I can't tell you how many have been come apart while you're pulling them off or leak after you get done. Again, that's just a little bit of insurance for the customer. Maybe some of the stuff might be a little bit more labor, but generally most of the stuff is, a couple connectors, pop it off, pop it on while you're doing the other job because you had to take one end off already. So just cover your butt because that's the key. You'll get much better customer satisfaction when you, promise what you wind up delivering. A customer comes in, needs a repair. If you say it's $500, they agree to the repair, and then you have to call them back and say it's $800. How pissed off is the customer? Now let's say that same customer, you say it might be $800, but we're hoping for a $500 repair. Well, customer is going to be, $800, that's a little expensive. Like, this is worst case scenario. This is if this goes wrong, it's this much money. But if that doesn't go wrong, it's this much money. Well, pissed off customer, not pissed off customer. They expect an $800 repair, they might get an $800 repair. They might get a $500 repair. much better situation to be in as a shop rather than having to go back and, well, piss off a customer by raising their price. Nobody likes making that second call. Trust me, it sucks for everybody involved. The customer gets told it's going to be more money. Service writer has to sell them more money. And you as a technician are sitting there going, well, I'm getting yelled at today. So I hope this video was helpful. As always, thanks for watching. I am the Flat Rate Master.